Welcome to the deep dive. Imagine the beauty of Pahalgam in Kashmir. Absolutely stunning, actually. Crisp air, mountains.
Breathtaking.
Now just shadow that picture. April 22nd, 2025, a terror attack, but specifically targeting tourists.
Yeah.
It felt like more than just violence, didn't it? Almost like a calculated move in this really tense geopolitical soap opera between India and Pakistan.
Definitely felt calculated, high stakes.
So today, we're going to dive deep into what happened right after that attack. We'll look at India's immediate actions and tackle that big question. Should India keep the pressure on Pakistan? What does that actually mean?
And we've been looking closely at the sources covering the fallout, India's response, and basically trying to piece together the puzzle.
Exactly. Our mission here is to, cut through some of the noise, understand the complexities, and maybe see where things could be heading.
And that Pahalgam attack, the targeting is key, as you said, not indiscriminate, going after non-Muslim tourists.
Right.
It seems clearly aimed at stirring up communal trouble. And the timing, too, is pretty telling.
How so?
Well, it came after those Kashmir elections saw surprisingly high voter turnout. That participation, it kind of undermines the whole separatist narrative Pakistan often pushes.
Ah, okay. So the attack hits tourism, stokes communal fires, and tries to counteract that democratic progress.
Precisely. It's multi-layered. It wasn't just about the immediate casualties. It was an attempt to destabilize, to undermine that positive step. And we know the attackers had links back to groups in Pakistan.
And India didn't wait long to hit back. May 11th. Surgical strikes, they called them.
And deep inside Pakistan, not just near the border.
12 targets, apparently. Things like technical facilities, command centers, radar, weapon storage.
Yeah, hitting the infrastructure. It wasn't subtle.
No, it felt like a very clear message, like we can reach you and we will.
Exactly. The precision, the target types, it was all about demonstrating capability and resolve. Pakistan's first response was, well, a bit muted, wasn't it?
Kind of. Some muttering about, strong and forceful responses, but nothing immediate.
But that didn't last.
Not at all. Just hours after they supposedly agreed to keep a new ceasefire. Bang. Attack drones.
And not just in Kashmir. Across Jammu and Kashmir, Rajasthan, even Gujarat. That's a pretty wide front.
It felt like a real escalation. Maybe rash, maybe deliberate provocation. Hard to say.
And India's warning after that was even stronger. Talk of a fierce response.
And then they brought up the Indus Waters Treaty, suspending it.
Which is huge. That 1960 agreement is fundamental for water sharing.
That, quote, blood and water cannot flow together. Wow, that's strong language.
It really underscores the seriousness and, frankly, the leverage India feels it has with the treaty. Water is critical for Pakistan.
To really get why this is so fraught, you almost have to rewind, don't you? Back to 1947.
Oh, absolutely. The history is inescapable. India and Pakistan started at the same point but took such different roads.
India's economy, per capita, much stronger now. A vibrant, if sometimes chaotic, democracy. Real global clout.
Compared to Pakistan's journey, which has seen, military coups, recurring economic crises, the loss of East Pakistan, it's been much rockier.
Remember Chindia? That whole idea feels like ancient history now.
It does. And Pakistan seems to be falling behind other nations in, like, the global supply chain race, too.
So that history, that power imbalance, that feeds into the present, right?
Completely. And it's why you hear the argument that India has to keep the pressure on because of this perception of Pakistan's deep state.
The military and intelligence services operating almost independently.
Yeah, that network. And the argument is they've consistently used terrorism as a tool of foreign policy. Pahalgam, Mumbai in 2008, and numerous other incidents, they're cited as examples.
So easing up now would be like, what was the analogy? Giving a pyromaniac matches.
Something like that, yeah. That's the core of the argument for maintaining pressure. Don't reward bad behavior.
Plus, Pakistan's economy is, struggling.
Definitely. High inflation, dependence on the IMF. It's a vulnerable spot.
And India, using the Indus Waters Treaty, potentially, that hits the agricultural sector hard.
It's economic leverage, plain and simple. The framing isn't about cruelty, but about consequences. You can't keep causing trouble and expect business as usual.
Like you can't have your cake, eat it, and then lob the plate at us.
Pretty much sums up that line of thinking.
Okay, what about the rest of the world? How did they react?
It was kind of mixed, or maybe nuanced is a better word. India's diplomats, like S. Jaishankar, were active.
They got condemnations of the Pahalgam attack, right? From Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the U.S.
Yes, condemnations came through. And India's defense minister, Rajnath Singh, apparently called Pakistan a rogue state to his U.S. counterpart, Pete Hegseth. So, strong language behind the scenes, too. But
Right.
significantly, no country publicly pointed the finger directly at Islamabad for orchestrating the attack.
So, like that party analogy, everyone knows who spiked the punch, but no one calls them out publicly?
Huh, something like that. There's condemnation of the act, but reluctance to assign state responsibility directly, at least openly.
And the U.S. role. Historically, they've often stepped in to de-escalate.
They have, after Mumbai, for instance. And even now, they apparently helped facilitate Pakistan pulling back from those lossy border violations.
But their influence might be less now. Maybe distracted by domestic politics back home? The Trump administration.
Vacant ambassador posts?
That seems to be part of the dynamic, yes. A less focused U.S. arguably gives regional players more room, for better or worse.
And then there's China, Pakistan's all-weather buddy.
Right. And China has its own big interests, especially CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. That runs right through Pakistani-administered Kashmir.
So China backing Pakistan's sovereignty isn't just about friendship.
No, it's also about strategic competition with India. Containing India's influence is definitely part of Beijing's calculation.
Which brings us back inevitably to Kashmir itself. It's just central, isn't it? Absolutely central. Symbolically massive for both sides. For Pakistan, it's tied to national identity ideology. For India, it's about sovereignty, secular democracy.
And those recent elections in Kashmir, with the high turnout, that really poked a hole in Pakistan's narrative, didn't it?
A big one. Which might explain the desperation behind the Pahalgam attack, targeting tourism, the local economy.
It's like saying, if we can't have Kashmir, we'll make sure nobody enjoys it.
A very grim, destructive logic, if that's the case.
Now, India's military strategy, this Operation Sindoor, it seemed like more than just tit for tat.
Yeah, the strikes being deeper suggests an effort to raise the cost for Pakistan, to make supporting terrorism much more painful.
But that's risky. Escalation is always a danger.
Huge risk. You push too hard, you get a counterreaction, maybe third parties get drawn in. And then there's the nuclear dimension, always looming in the background.
Like playing chess with explosive pieces.
A very apt analogy. Extremely high stakes.
Let's talk about the internal situation in both countries. What are the pressures?
In Pakistan, you're hearing reports of pressure on Army Chief General Munir. Questions even in their National Assembly.
Plus public discontent, right? Amplified by social media.
Definitely. And the struggling economy fuels that. Plus, as we said, not much strong international backing seems to be materializing for them.
It's like that potluck analogy again, showing up with only complaints.
Huh. Maybe. They seem somewhat isolated on this.
And in India, the government's leveraging nationalist sentiment, presumably. Elections coming up.
Oh, for sure. PM Modi's rhetoric has been strong. It plays well domestically.
But there's a balancing act there too, isn't there? You don't want to overplay the military hand, neglect other issues, or damage India's image internationally.
Exactly. Alienating partners, ignoring domestic priorities, those are risks. Maintaining that image of a pluralistic democracy is also important on the world stage.
So with all this going on, is direct dialogue even on the table right now?
It doesn't seem like it, from the Indian perspective anyway. The argument you hear is that elements in Pakistan's military actually benefit from controlled hostility.
And that they use terrorism, so talks are pointless if the attacks continue.
Kind of. Past peace efforts were often followed by more attacks, like Kargil after the Lahore Declaration, so there's deep skepticism.
Asking the fox to guard the henhouse, perhaps.
That's the sentiment behind why dialogue is currently seen as unviable by many in New Delhi. Trust is just completely broken.
So what is India's strategy then? It seems multi-pronged.
That's a good way to put it. Military readiness and demonstrated strength. Economic pressure, with the Indus Waters Treaty as a potential lever.
Check.
And diplomatic efforts to isolate Pakistan.
Check. So the goal isn't necessarily war, but to make the current approach too costly for Pakistan's deep state.
That seems to be the objective, deterrence through cost imposition. And given Pakistan's internal issues, maybe they blink first.
What's the long view here? India's position seems strong, but also tricky.
Precarious is a good word. Strong, yes, but they have to keep up the pressure without triggering a wider war, especially with China watching closely. It requires a very careful calculation.
like a chess grandmaster navigating a complex board.
Exactly. For Pakistan, the military's grip might be facing more challenges internally than before. Public frustration is growing. Maybe they need to focus inward.
Instead of on Kashmir.
That would be the hope for long-term stability and the world. Well, the international community needs to be consistent, perhaps, hold Pakistan accountable for terror, but also support India's right to defend itself.
At the end of the day, peace benefits everyone.
Immensely. But
Yeah.
getting there, that's the challenge. The Pahalgam attack really was a brutal reminder of how fragile things are. India's firm response has definitely shifted the ground, but the core issues, they're still there.
It's a really delicate balance India has to strike now. Maintaining pressure, avoiding war.
Absolutely critical going forward.
And that leaves us, and you, with a final thought. With all this tension, is a real fundamental shift in Pakistan's strategy even possible? Or maybe, is it actually necessary for any kind of lasting peace? And what about those external players? Are they helping or hindering? Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.